what got this started was I found it surprising that TikTok had surpassed Netflix in the terms of video viewership. I mean, Netflix is huge, and they've had record growth. But now I think part of this is Netflix is starting; they're reaching capacity, as far as market saturation and all that. But TikTok is it's huge now. What I was saying, so the part one of the reasons that people aren't giving it enough credence is they say, well, that's in Americans 35 and under or 18 to 35. Well, my market isn't 18 to 35. And I'm like, well, it's not right now, but it will be. Like the 22-year-old's going to grow up and then they will be in your market. So if you start marketing to them before they're in your demographic, then they'll show up knowing you. So that's we're active on TikTok. I like it a lot. Are we selling much on TikTok? No, but that's not the point. We sell on Shopify, we sell on Amazon, we sell when we're talking about like fitting sales. Now we sell occasionally on TikTok. We'll see that UTM medium come through TikTok. All right, cool. That's awesome. That's icing on the cake. But what we're really trying to do is find the future fencing professionals. Someone that's on a crew right now that maybe, I mean, they don't make purchasing decisions, but one day they might. They'll start their own company or they'll be promoted into a position that has purchasing power. And then we'll just be a household name, hopefully, for them.
I think it's really interesting. We follow a guy who is in the B2B SaaS space.
Okay.
And he's been pushing into TikTok really hard the last 6 months. Very prolific content creator in his space. And he has landed at least one, if not two or three clients, CEOs, watching him on TikTok and signing up for a $400,000 ACV product off TikTok videos. When they ask, where did you hear about us? A CEO, a CFO, a chief technology officer is like, I watch you on TikTok.
That's real.
If that doesn't prove that there are more than just kids on TikTok.
Teenagers dancing.
So
yeah, he doesn't dance either.
No, of course I don't either. Like I'm not gonna. No. I put a video up on Facebook. What day was that? Sunday or Monday? Anyway, my son had a program at his church school, and so they were having like a free dance in the middle of a song, having a free dance. Well, he does one of these like knee knocking dances. And I was like, listen, folks, he gets his dancing moves from me because that's about all I got. I'm not doing like choreographed like anything. It's just not what I'm going to do. But, what's funny about this conversation, though, about B2B being in places that people don't expect them to be, we had this conversation 5 or 6 years ago about Facebook because people said, what are companies doing on Facebook? This is a platform that people show cat pictures and they put pictures of their kids on. Like, why people don't do business on this platform? It's like, well, I guess that's true if in business to business you don't sell to people. Like if you're selling to robots or something, I guess that's probably true. But that's the thing is like, it's not like they take off their CEO cap and they put on their grandpa cap or their dad cap and they're like, I'm going to go check. I'm like, no, I mean, they're on that platform consuming content. And it's even better that they didn't go there to consume, sales content because, I mean, and this might be different for other people, but when I go onto LinkedIn, especially into my messages, there's a wall like solidly in place. I'm like, no sales, no sales, no sales. Like I'm ready to be bombarded to try to find the content I want to find. But when I go to TikTok, I don't have those walls up, right? I'm just free. I'm just free consuming content. And so I think that's part of this discussion too, is that you got to go to platforms that people aren't used to getting sold on because they don't have those barriers up. I think TikTok's still there.
Well, this conversation goes back to something that we've been talking about for several years, and that's that businesses have a trouble creating content that's not sales driven.
Yeah.
It's like there's a disconnect there. So it's like, you're right. The CEO is not going on Facebook or TikTok to buy.
Sure.
So that means you don't go there to sell. You go there to share your point of view, a message,
Yep.
value, entertainment. You go there to share and be known. You don't go there with like a click to buy fittings. But it's like that's all. But the businesses, they operate in this very binary thing. It's like if we go somewhere, we need to run this type of media, and this is how we do it. It's a commercial. It's to sell. It's click to buy. If there's no call to action, there's no point in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's really missing the opportunity to
Yeah.
reach people. So yeah, when they go to Facebook and they're trying to sell a B2B product or service with an ad, they're like, yeah, this stinks. Nobody's clicking on it. The people that do don't want it.
I think that's
because they're not going there to buy.
I think that's very astute in that, yeah, because businesses, when they try to go onto these platforms, they'll bring their sales message with them, and they're like, well, we tried it and it didn't work. Like, well,
Yeah.
you just you didn't try it correctly. Like if I I don't know, if I go over to Europe and I go to Germany, right, and I walk into a restaurant and I speak English and I'm saying I'm here for dinner, and they throw me out because no one knows what I'm saying, I wouldn't say these restaurants are awful. They don't serve food to anybody in there. Like, I would never go there to eat.
Yeah.
No, you weren't speaking the right language. If you'd gone in there and asked correctly for some dinner, they would have served you dinner. So,
well, it's like funny, like nobody, like it's, these wonderful things that we have now today, right? Like you said in LinkedIn. So they even tell you when there's possible spam, right? Do you answer the phone when it says possible spam? Not happening, right?
Nah.
When you get a LinkedIn message, you probably don't answer it, right?
Not a chance. No.
But if you're on LinkedIn and somebody makes a comment insightful on your your post, you're like, you start engaging. And the funny thing is because I watch it happen all the time, you usually go and click on that person's profile if you don't know who they are. You're like, who are they? And then that person technically can see who clicked on their profile if they're paying attention, right? And if you got a message from that person, you would probably look at it. So it's not that these things don't work. It's that we have to adapt to how people are using them today. We don't have to just say, oh, LinkedIn doesn't work because I hate all those spam messages, or I'm not going to pick up the phone. If you know who it is when it calls, you answer it, right? Like that person. If Brad calls Joe, I'm going to answer. If it says potential spam, you're not answering. We have to change we have to continually change. I was thinking earlier while you guys were talking. You talked about Facebook used to be indifferent. Used to be you ran an ad in the Yellow Pages. I don't think you're going to spend money on a Yellow Pages ad, right?
No.
And it used to be a while back you had to convince somebody that a business that they needed a website. I'm hoping we're past that. And I'm hoping we're telling people, but some people still, that you got to make content. You got to continue to grow with your buyer and their habits and their buying habits. But that's kind of like, I feel like B2B has their head in the sand and says, nope, only way to do it is to have a guy in a room with a phone. Yeah. And that's it. Or like you said, wait for them to call you. I want to place an order.
I couldn't agree more. And I think the sales process has changed also. People don't want to be sold. They want to buy, right? And those are two very different processes. When I walk into a sneaker store, I don't want 5 people rushing up and they're all saying, hey, I've got this great sneaker. I've got this. I've got that. And I'm like, well, I wasn't here for a hiker. I wasn't here for this. I wasn't here. How about I tell you what I'm looking for and what I do on a daily basis, and then we'll talk about what you've got that will serve those purposes. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a very clear distinction. So, and I've used this analogy has happened. So I'll walk into just a franchise sneaker store, and that's all it is they've got nothing but salespeople who are pushing whatever shoes on sale that month or whatever they're trying to push. They've got so many socks they got to sell, so they're going to push you on socks and, and care products and all this. Well, then I went into like a locally owned like boot shop, right? Just where you can get good quality work boots. And there's 2 guys. It's a father-son team, and they say, well, what do you do? So, well, I've got a fence company. Oh, okay. All right. Well, do you build fence or are you in the office? So, well, I'm in the office. Oh, okay. Said, okay, so, but are you out in the field? Do you go out in the field? I said, I do occasionally. All right, okay. So they started asking me all these questions about what I do and how I use the boots. They said, okay, so what I heard you say was that you don't need like this all-terrain boot that's insulated and this and that, but you do need it to be rugged because we don't handle cheap boots here. You do want it to be waterproof because you are going out in the field, so that is important. You don't want to come back to the office with wet boots. And so they tailored their offering to the information I gave them. They led with questions and then offered a solution. I bought the boot they recommended.
Yeah.
At the sneaker shop, I basically told them I'm just looking, because that's the answer. I'm just here to look, not here to buy. And then I went and found something I wanted and said, okay, I want this and an 11.5. Could you bring this to me? Well, let me show you. No. This and 11.5. I don't want socks. I don't want this Scotch Brite or whatever. Just want these shoes. Very different buying experiences.
And whatever price those guys told you about the boots, you probably thought, well, that's a good deal for if it's going to do this, this, and this, right? Like they sold the value of it, not the price tag.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. And they were professionals, right? So I said, okay, so they know everything I'm going to do with this boot. If they tell me that's the boot, then that's the boot. Because these guys know boots and they know exactly how I'm going to use it. And then I get emails from them occasionally and they'll say, and it's not the Black Friday, 30% off, get a free pair of socks with a pair of boots sort of thing. And it's just like, hey, wanted to check and see how the boots now. So since I enjoy the marketing side, I understand this is a marketing journey, right? So they're automated, but they're really good. Because they say it's been about a month since you've been in. You've probably started breaking in the boots. Let us know if you're having problems with the break-in process. And then a little while later, it's like, hey, sometimes on new boots, the laces look good, but they fray easily. So if you need a new pair of laces, bring your boots in. We do free laces, so we'll relace them for you and all this. Let me tell you what, when anybody needs a pair of boots, they're going to that store. If I have to take them there myself, I'm taking them to this boot shop.
That's really good.
If I need a pair of tennis shoes, I'm not going back to that shoe store. I'm going to Amazon or somewhere else.
Every small business knows that word of mouth and referrals, most powerful thing, right? Best advertising.
Massive.
What most small businesses believe is it's not something they can influence effectively. And that company is proving that's a great case study of how much you can influence someone becoming a raving fan. They made you, they did that. They made you into a raving fan, which is making you the kind of person that says, no, you have to get your boots here. These are awesome.
Raving fan. That's the thing is if any of my guys need boots, we're going there. If any, absolutely.
Now we took a step further though. How did you find out about them? So if you think about if they made content on the types of guys that came in and they did even just what you said and they did that little bit of interview of how would you use these boots and then showed them on there? I mean, content, you would share that, right?
Yeah.
So now it would multiply even further. Call them up.
Absolutely.
Call them up and tell them they owe us a little bit of money.
Well, they definitely owe jokes. It sounds like he's selling
a pair of boots.
Hey, listen, but this is the point, right? I don't expect anything in return. There's no referral fee program. There's no bring us 3 friends and we'll give you something.
Yeah.
It's nothing. They're just how can we be of service to you?
Right.
And now I know if they're that way with me, they're going to be that way with other people. And now listen, they're not a cheap place either, right? They lean into quality. They lead with value. If I wanted to go buy cheap boots, I could find them at Walmart or somewhere else, but these are serious boots. But I willingly paid for it. And that's the funny thing, right? Is with the tennis shoes, I bet I can find them cheaper somewhere else. And I looked around and this and that. Those boots,
they're not trusted experts to you. Those people at that shoe store, you had no connection with them as a trusted expert. And that's the amazing thing about video and content is that we've learned. And I know that you know this because you do it, you live it, you breathe it, is that you putting your face out there and you, even if they could find that same information somewhere else, but you saying it, there is a bond that is built and a trust that you are the trusted expert. And like you said, long before they're looking right? Those guys that are just out there slinging a hammer right now or holding the post or whatever. They don't have to look anywhere else because they already have you in their mind as you are the guy because you're making videos on it. There's something, I think it's funny because, like, we used to think, oh, so got on TV, right? Like when we were growing up, the only way you could get on TV is to become a movie star, right? Or something crazy happened on the news.
Yeah.
Now you can put yourself on the TV, someone's computer or phone all the time.
Yeah.
And there's such a low barrier. But, they're not doing it because they're not thinking how to do it.
Well, in this example of the boot shop, right? Like I found them because I get my hair cut next door. And I was talking to those guys, and we got talking about, like, hey, you got to go check these guys out. And so I did. But if I didn't get my hair cut there, I may never have gone into that store. But now if they did video content where they said, hey, here's the break-in process for these boots. Here's what could go wrong, right? And here's the proper way of breaking them in, and here's how you – the whole thing, right? And about the shoelaces and about leather care, right?
Yeah.
About just all sorts of stuff. I likely probably would have found. I consume a lot of digital social content. I probably would have found them, and so yeah, absolutely.
So, Joe,
but
go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say. So for that brand, for people out there that love, they reap the rewards of this, finding people to cheer for them, leading through customer service and the buying journey and all that. I think that's a key takeaway is if you lean into social media, you can set that social capital on fire. You can turbocharge it, right? And that's when I'm talking to people about making videos, that's one of the things I say is like, that's a common, 6 months ago, a year ago, the common complaint was I'm too busy. All I do is word of mouth. I don't advertise, and I'm already booked out a year.
Yeah.
Like, well, imagine if you could take that word of mouth and turbocharge it and just set it ablaze. What would that do to your business? That's what creating, and it's easy videos, right? It's simple. It's not high production quality. It's answering questions. But imagine what you could do if you took that word of mouth and just made it on a massive scale. I mean, that's what social media can do. And it's not the barrier for entry, to use your term, the barrier for entry is so low. Yeah. I mean, most everyone has a device. I'm speaking to you on a device that I held in my pocket, right? Yeah. I had this thing for free. Shoots 4K video. The audio is pretty decent. I mean, there's a YouTube channel I follow. They're out of the UK, out of Nottingham, called D&J Projects, or a father-son fencing duo. They shoot exclusively on iPhones, no cameras, and they have a massive following. So yeah, and that's the thing is if you're in a situation like this father-son boot store, like now that I'm like talking about this, I need to go talk to them.
Yes,
like,
yes.
Listen, let me help you with some video and
send Brandon over there.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what we need to do, and just film some of their content. Like, listen, your emails are good, and I respect them as a marketer, but they're probably winding up in spam boxes, and people are probably clicking unsubscribe because they just want to declutter their inbox. But if you shot a video this is the Marcus Sheridan thing, right? And they ask you answer. What are your top 10 questions you're tired of answering? Mm-hmm. Do you guys offer free bootlaces? Absolutely. Bring them in. Well, let's talk about that, right? Let's show you, like, what is a frayed bootlace? Like, if I'm looking at it, I'm like, well, is that frayed or is it just worn? I don't know. It could probably last a little while longer, where they might look at it and go, no, bring that to me. I will replace it so it doesn't break in the middle of a job or something.
Or why you even start going into the mindset of like, what problems would that cause? Because if it starts to fray, does that loosen the boot, which then starts to wear the boot on your feet more and you start to get blisters? I mean, you could make a whole series of content on this boot of laces.
Well, around the importance of laces and how you lace. Like, I remember going to like an insole store several years ago, and I was lacing up the shoes after I bought the insoles, and the lady's like, no. You have it this much tight here and this much tight here. This is how you keep it on your foot. This part, you got to let your foot not do that. You can't constrict it here because it messes up your gait and how you walk. And it was like, I never would have known that. But the thing is those conversations, it's like we're saying, don't have to exclusively happen one-on-one in the store. They can happen on a bigger scale. So, Joe, I want to talk a little bit about what you do because I think you do a really good job of it. And I just want to get into like what you're seeing. I'm really interested in kind of like your frame of reference right now and like what's going on. So like there's a good chance people that hear this may not know. I know you're pretty famous, but they may not know the fence guy. So tell me a little bit about like what you've done with video, just kind of like a real short, and then I kind of want to talk about like what's going on right now.
Yeah, so third generation fencing professional. So I've done it for quite a long time. I've done it since I was a kid. I watched my granddad do it. I watched my dad do it. And, per our earlier conversation, they were marketing, in the Yellow Pages. My dad marketed in the Yellow Pages because my granddad marketed in the Yellow Pages. And I had this wild idea of creating a website. And I was like, well, why would we're a fence company. Like, we're not Mercedes over here. Like, we're a fence company. Like, but people still want to find us. Like, maybe someone wants to look up our address. Well, why wouldn't they just look in the Yellow Pages? Okay, I get it. But so we started there. We started with a website.
Wait, how long ago was that?
Oh, this is years ago.
Yeah.
It was. So I'll tell you how long ago it was. AT&T built our website.
Oh.
Because we had Yellow Pages with them.
You are a forward thinker, sir.
Okay. It was a while ago, and it was super basic. It was one page, Ozark fence. Didn't even have a picture, right? It was just Ozark with like a stock photography of a fence, our address. It was really bland and basic, but it got us there. But lo and behold, people started mentioning it. Hey, got your address on the website and this and that. So they're like, oh, okay, this website thing, right? And like, all right, I told you, like it's going to be a thing. To my dad's credit, he started letting me, in the early days of Facebook, he started letting me play around with Facebook targeted posts. So just ads. So this is before you could boost a post. You had to like create an ad campaign and all that. And it wasn't crazy. It was probably like $50 or $100 a month. Like it wasn't a lot. But he let me play around with it just to see. And sure enough, because it was early days in Facebook, the big brands hadn't stepped in yet. So you could really get some. I mean, this was back in the days of organic growth, right? So we could, if you put a little money behind it, you could reach the entire city. So we played around with that a little bit, more with branding messages than with sales messages. Kind of what we were talking about earlier. Just hey, we're a family-owned and operated fence company. Here's a picture of a fence we recently did. Here's this and that. We never said like come buy your fence from us. It was literally just like, hey, here's some interesting pictures, because I knew my dad was on Facebook because my daughter at the time had just been born. And so he wanted to see pictures of her when he didn't get to see her. Right. And so I was like, okay. So people are on there looking at pictures. Let's show them pictures of fence. Right. And this is pre-video. So we started doing pictures of fence, and then we started with Instagram doing pictures. And this is when Instagram was really out there. It was, I forget the term for it, but it was viewed as just kind of like a fringe platform for a while. And then we just started growing with it. We started seeing success from people that said they saw us on Facebook. And then we started doing video. They started allowing videos. And so this is, let's see, get the timelines right here. We had done a little bit of video before I read Marcus Sheridan's book, but Marcus Sheridan has a great book, They Ask You Answer. Actually, there's a revised version of it out now. It is still foundational knowledge for how we produce content. And it's such a simple, now it's a great read. Everyone should go read it. But the cliff notes are, you should answer your client's questions before they have them, or your potential client's questions before they have them. So I borrowed a camcorder from a buddy, and I got a backdrop, and I put it in my living room and had my wife take the kids to the playground. And I just sat there and recorded content like, who is Ozark Fence? What areas do we serve? Do we build fence in the wintertime? What kind of fence do we? How much does a fence cost? Is number one question, right? I have an average yard. Well, one of the videos was there's no such thing as an average yard. No, there's no 2 yards that are identical anywhere in the world. There's not an average yard. And then I talked about what influences the cost of a fence, though, right? So it was also providing some educational content. And we started posting that stuff on Facebook, and it started doing very well. In the pivotal moment, the part that cemented this for me was I went and knocked on this lady's door, and she opens the door, and she goes, "Oh, you're the guy on Facebook."
Yeah.
I said, "Well, yeah." I'd heard this once before, so I always like to think up like funny, like disarming type things. And so I got that from my granddad. This guy could never take a compliment or anything. So, but so I was like, well, yeah, so I'm just a fence guy. So you're saying I'm too cheap to hire somebody to do these videos, and if I did, they wouldn't look like me. So we kind of had to chuckle about it, and we walked around to the yard, and I'm measuring it. And at the time, we were only installing steel posts. And so I said, Miss Customer, we're a little bit different than others in town in that we only use steel posts and cedar materials. And she goes, yeah, what'd she say? Something along the lines of, well, that's how I met you. You were telling me about the cedar materials that came from Arkansas and the steel posts that had this really big warranty and they're not going to rot. And she paired it back to me, basically my whole video.
Yeah.
And that's when it clicked. I was like, wait a minute. So she knew me before I knocked on the door. She knew what I was going to talk to her about before I got there.
Right.
My job at this point is simply to answer any additional questions and take the order. Like, that's what it is. And so I was like, okay, this is good. We've got to keep doing this. And we've been doing video stuff ever since. We started when Facebook rolled out lives. You could do when they first started doing lives. We did Ask a Fence Guy Friday, where I just took a phone and set it up, and I just answered from. It was like noon to 1 on Fridays, and like for the first month or two, my mom was the only person that would join. Because Facebook Lives were really new and no one really understood what they were. And but my mom was always there. She's like, she goes, "Tell me about the fences you offer." I'm like, Mom, they can see your name. They know we're related. It's okay.
I think I've done that.
Like, but I'll play along.
Yeah.
So okay.
But then people started joining.
So I don't know if I should skip forward in this because
whatever.
I think ideally at that point in time you weren't selling to contractors, you were selling to your client,
right?
And I
right,
like,
right.
I'm already there. It's like, come on, contractors, like get in there because you can solve these problems and get in front of your clients, but. You have made a new venture that that is now B2B, and you are invested. We know. So I'm gonna give a little bit give away a little bit of the secret here to the story. Sure. You believed in it so much. You have somebody on staff making. You don't have to see the numbers, the click through rates. You know it works. You've invested in it in your B2C company, but now you're going to B2B. How did you sit and approach, hey, how is my content? What is my marketing plan for my B2B? Did you go through that process of how do I reach them and the strategy conversation of it?
It's the same. It's the same. People get really worked up about that B2C is so much different than B2B. It's people buying from people.
Right.
It's the same. So we talked about this before we started in that, we had this conversation about Facebook, B2B on Facebook. People were like, well, I would never be on Facebook for B2B sales because it's just people looking at pictures of cats and kids. Here's the thing with that. Who do you think makes buying decisions at these businesses?
People
who also look at pictures of cats and kids.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you're right. It will not work if you're selling to robots and computers or something, right? As long as you're selling to a person, it works because people consume content. From the beginning of time, when we were telling stories through song, people consume content. So it's the same, and it's leading with information. So the content we're providing at Ozark Wireworks, the manufacturing B2B company, is just, hey, here's this machine running, because I think, like, from a mechanical standpoint, this machine's like a lot like magic. Like, I'm still trying to figure out exactly how this thing works. I think other people would be interested in that, right? And then we're also talking about right now. So part of Marcus Sheridan's point in his book is your customers know that you know the answer. So when you don't give them the answer, it kind of makes them suspicious. Now, he says this around the subject of pricing, because he has this whole, I don't want to give away the whole book, but basically they know, right? So we're talking in Ozark Wireworks now, we're talking about the difference on domestic and import produced wire strands, because not everyone, but there's some people that are really against importing steel strand and making it into chain link fence. They only want domestic strand. I said, okay, that's interesting. I understand. Like, let's support America. Totally, I agree. Where do you think the steel ingots come from that they're drawing the steel from?
Not here.
China's the number one purchaser of scrap steel in the United States. So they buy the steel, they smelt it, they turn it into a large amount of products, and then they send it back, right? Now, with anything, there are exceptions. There are companies in the United States that are recycling their own steel and they're making their own strand. They're not the majority of the market, right? So the companies, the domestic companies that are providing this smooth strand, the smooth wire, are buying Chinese products and then making it into, and they're saying, hey, it's made in America, which is true. I mean, that term, when you look the term up, there's some stipulations. As long as you meet the stipulations, it is made in America.
You can have the badge.
We're going to talk about that on the channel, and it's going to ruffle a few feathers, I think, but it is what it is, right? Like, let's talk about it. I can offer both. I've got domestic suppliers and I've got import suppliers. I've got suppliers from China, to be candid. So, because the product is kind of the same, whether it's coming from one place or the other. So we're leading with information. But my point with the Marcus Sheridan thing is, this is conversations that no one wants to have because they're like, well, it's my secret, right? I don't want everyone else to know it. Like, listen, your customers know though. That's the thing. Like, the customers know So when you don't talk about it, now it's kind of a taboo subject. And it's like, why aren't they telling? Like, why? And half the time, there's nothing serious behind the why, right? There's nothing super deceptive. There's no like criminal intent. There's nothing crazy. It's just they don't feel comfortable talking about it.
Yeah.
Right? About talking about, well, hey, you're right. Our ingots do come in from China, but here's why you would want to buy domestic, strand. Maybe there's probably more quality control that goes on. Maybe there's more. I don't know. But no one's having these conversations right now, at least in the chain link manufacturing space, because it's uncomfortable, because no one's ever talked about it. But when you're the first person to talk about it,
and you're getting out, and not just the first person, you're going to be the visible person out there because you're going to put it on video and you're going to put it on LinkedIn, Facebook. Yep. I'm guessing TikTok, we're going to see it.
Yep.
And
absolutely,
you are now the expert. Because they're not going to go look for the person that's not there and say, hey, why don't you answer this question and put a video out about it? They're just going to say, Ozark has put it out, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up about being the expert. So that's one of the things I talk to contractors about when they're talking to their customers, is that there's a 99.9% chance that your competitors in your marketplace aren't making video content.
Correct.
They're not. The fence people making content, there's like 5 or 6 of us, right? There's a handful of us making content in the United States. So,
and you know them all.
Yeah. I know what markets they're in. So, like, when I'm giving these talks, if I'm in a market that they're not in, I can guarantee none of you are making content. Yeah. But the first person that does, though, they get the advantage, right? So now, to your point, they are the local expert to go to when you have a question about insert profession, right? You get first mover advantage. You're the first person to do it. And all we're doing on the manufacturing side is taking that same logic and applying it to B2B from B to C. It's the same. I think people get really, really worked up about that. It's got to be different. To our conversation earlier that, well, in B2B, it's got to be a sales message. No, it shouldn't be a sales message. It should be value. It should be leading with value to where if what I sell meets what their requirements are, then they will come to me, right? And they will say, Joe's the guy that told us about this and that and the other. Here's the thing, though. You have to be up and up about it, right? You have to be. And so sometimes I watch video messages that it's a sales message that's tried to be disguised as helpful, right? Like, no. You're giving me skewed results. This is a one-sided conversation. You've got to give it all, right? You've got to. Marcus gives a great example of one of the pieces of content he did in the pool company was the top 4 pool manufacturers in whichever city he was in that you should do business with. and he wasn't on the list. Right?
Oh wow.
He's like, hey, if you're not doing business with us, here's 4 people that I would have them put a pool in my backyard tomorrow.
Wow.
It's not like, here's the top 4 fence companies in Springfield. Number 1, Ozark Fence Company.
SaaS companies
wow,
do that
how'd
a
you
lot.
win that?
Yeah, they're pretty
Yeah.
masterful at making the.
When you Google best software, gee, who sponsored number 1?
Yeah.
Right. So that's the thing, is you have to give an unbiased answer, right? Like, so when I get into the conversation on import versus domestic, like, I have to give the complete and full story, no matter what the answer is, right? Like, if the outcome isn't good for me, I still need to give the correct information, because people will figure that out too, right? And then they won't come to you because they're like, well, wait a minute, he's going to try to give information, but it's going to be a sales pitch, right? He's only going to give me the information that leads to me buying from him. You've got to give the full and complete picture, knowing that your tribe will support that, right? You got to give the full and complete truth.
You know, one of the things that I think is different in B2B is the mentality around some of the products. I think smaller companies are more of the mindset, well, I just sell a commodity product in B2B. In B2C, a lot of people feel like they have, the whole reason they're doing it is that they're doing something different. And in B2B, it's like, well, we just make fence. We do fence. Everybody, just like my competitors.
It's the same fence over here, the same fence over there.
And they start to develop this. I hear it in like the talk behind the scenes in B2B. Well, all chemicals the same, all this is the same, all that's the same. And if that's your opinion about your company, then you don't really have a lot of a message to share out there. If you don't have, like, what is your perspective on how I talk to the world, and whether it's like what's unique about your product or unique about your point of view around the industry, around your product, around what matters to your clients. You have to develop something that you're saying that's not exactly what everyone else is saying.
Why we do what we do.
Yeah, and a great example is fuel stations. So they all sell unleaded gasoline, which is literally a commodity. Yeah. They sell a commodity. Yeah. Now, what they've gotten really good at is figuring out what makes them different, right? So whether it's we've got one that's their big things. They've got the cleanest restaurants in the Midwest, or the restrooms in the Midwest. If you go into a restroom and it does not meet 110% satisfaction, you go tell somebody, they will shut the bathroom down. They will clean it top to bottom, because they do not compromise on that. Guess who that's important to? Well, in our family, it's really important to my wife. Is because she's taking kids in to change diapers. We've got a daughter that's still in diapers. She wants that bathroom spotless. She doesn't want to worry about anything, right? Well, what are the chances that while she's in there, now she might get fuel, she might not, but while she's in there, my 5-year-old's going to want a juice, and he's probably going to want a snack, and my 12-year-old's going to want a water, and she's going to want a snack.
$20 later.
Wife.
Well,
so
go ahead.
And they didn't even sell the commodity in this exchange.
Yeah.
Right? They didn't even sell the gas station that they're there to sell. They sold
and
stuff.
I think that's genius, yeah.
But that's the example, right? Is in B2B, it might be a commodity. It might be. But that's not what you're selling.
Right.
You're selling the experience that it is to do business with your company. That's what it is. Like for us at Wireworks, you're right. I could name off 8 different companies right now that manufacture chain link wire. They're weaving wire today. Okay. Well, let me tell you about why we're different, right? Like, here's the thing is, and I know the pain points because we were in the fencing industry, right? It's misweaves. You don't want your guys to have to stop what they're doing, weave out miswoven chain link and weave it back together. You don't want them to have to fix the twist at the top or fix the knuckles at the bottom. So that's one of the things we talk about. Hey, I've got a guy named Bryce that runs these machines. He's our lead operator. Bryce doesn't miss stuff. He doesn't miss weaves. He doesn't miss, untwisted twists. He doesn't miss knuckles. Bryce doesn't miss. Period. So when you buy wire from us, you're not going to have someone stop and reweave wire. What's it worth to you? That your guys are on a job site. Now they don't have to take time. And it's a pain, right? So no one enjoys doing it anyway. So we're going to alleviate some pain for you. Now, we're not going to run wire as fast because that's what leads to these mistakes.
Yeah.
And we're going to have, right now we've got one machine, so we have one Bryce. But when we have two machines, we'll have two versions of Bryce. If we have three machines, it's three versions. And this is important because some of the larger scale manufacturers of weavers of wire, the industry, I don't want to say industry standard, but what a lot of guys do is they'll have one operator per two or three machines. And so that's why these mistakes happen, is because you have one guy with the head on a swivel watching three machines. And do you think so if one machine has a problem, do you think he stops the other two machines? No, because he's got production quotas and he's got to meet production. So, and then this thing waterfalls, right? So that will always ever be one of our selling propositions, is that we have Bryce. We've got a guy who is going to watch this wire, and it is, once you get this going, it is mind-numbingly boring to watch wire just move up the trolley system, because it's the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over. But that's what he does. His attention to detail is unmatched.
So two things in that I heard. One, I wouldn't have known that was an issue until you said it. Now, I automatically think the competitor doesn't have a Bryce. That's in my head. I'm thinking, do they do that? And you didn't even have to say that. Now I think that. And two, we know that people do business with people they know, like, and trust. And if I have seen Bryce's picture, just because you told me that, I don't have any other evidence except for Joe told me, I like Bryce. Bryce does a good job. I'm going to buy from Bryce because Bryce is doing it versus someone that's no name, no picture, no corporate look. And people forget that you need to incorporate a little bit of person there, because I do want to buy it from people that know, like, and trust, and that situation. And you did that just by showing me a clip. And by the way, I have watched your video of the wine, and I'm not buying fences, but I know I've watched it.
And I think that's a takeaway for anybody. Like, the point is, like, you have a unique selling proposition, right? And even if it's you, like, if I'm the guy making the wire, I'm like, hey, listen, the reason you're buying from Ozark Wire Works is because you've got me. I'm going to be watching the wire. I'm going to be doing this. And so when you get a roll of wire, you get my wire. So, and that's important to me. And you can insert that statement as long as it's true in any industry, right? Now, it's got to be true, right? Like, because that's where some of that disingenuous stuff comes from too, is you see companies that try to, they'll use like an influencer and insert them into the company and try to act like the influencer has a lot to do with the company, where, and maybe just like from being in the marketing world, like, no, they're not.
Right.
They get paid a fee per video to act like they're part of your company, but they're not. So it's got to be true.
So I think two things that I think are worth mentioning from that are, any company. So the first thing you said, the first thing you nailed in on that is, well, I know the pain points of the customer because I am a customer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That right there is like the secret, is knowing what your customers care about, knowing what their pain points are. And the thing is like, you have an advantage, right? I'm already a customer, so I already know. I'm going into it with the insider knowledge. Any company can get that information by asking people as well, though. You just have to go out, they have to take one extra step. That's not that's not exclusive to them. And then the second part to that is the follow-up to it, which is any company can develop a USP around knowing the pain points of their customer.
Yeah.
If you know what's important to customers and you make sure to be on top of that, that becomes a USB.
Oh, they really care about clean bathrooms. Let me go even market clean bathrooms, which has nothing to do with gas. And now everybody comes to them. You're right.
Exactly. And so I think that there's like, it's not right. You don't have to go out and like do some like major development on making like the next, you don't have to like wire, weave wire in like this whole new way to develop the USP. And I think that's something you're hitting in on. I just want, like, if someone listens to this, besides you and I talking, or like 2 or 3 people. But if someone listens to
Or
this,
his mom.
it's to hear that that's the gold in it, is that people will tell you how you can stand apart. Your customers will tell you how you can stand apart.
Yeah. Well, and all you have to do is ask. Yeah. That's the thing. So one, I have bought this. I am a customer of this product, right? But I'm in our region, but we sell nationally, right? So part of me thought, well, maybe this is a localized problem, right? So what I did is I just went out into the free Facebook groups for fence guys that I already happen to be in, but I just said, hey, when you're buying chain link, like what ruins your day? Like what about chain link ruins your day? And kind of find out it wasn't a localized issue. It was misweaves and it was mistwists and all the rest. And that's part of our message. And so we just, knowing that it's such a big problem, that's what we talk about is, hey, listen, this little mechanism twists every single twist. It's not going to miss. And if it misses, we got a Bryce. And Bryce is going to shut this system down. He's going to figure out what's going on, and then we'll get it up and running. We're not going to try to sort it out on the fly while this machine's running. It's an automatic shutdown, and we figure it out because I know it's a problem. If it's a problem for you, you'll probably like our wire.
Yeah. Now,
knowing that it's
yeah. I mean, it's amazing. And the thing is on top of that, when you're focusing in on that problem, you're creating real value, not marketing value, real value to the guy in the field.
So, you know, you talked about being kind of one of the first, and to get that website. You were on the edge, right? Sure. And then and then you did photos, and then you were looking out, and then there was videos. So what I'm hearing you say is, it's not, hey, this is the answer. It's like, this is the answer today. Yeah, but I think, you know, what we were talking about in that original post that kind of started this was, I hear you saying, I'm committed to keep growing whatever our strategy is. I'm going to go whatever, if it's virtual reality, which we kind of chatted about. I think we talked about that with Caleb, didn't we? I think maybe we didn't.
Like metaverse and that. That's it.
I think in any of these worlds, augmented reality could be an amazing selling tool. If a salesman, or you could, you know, hold up your camera and see what your yard looked like with the fence you want and the color you want sitting there, and it was as simple as that, like, I think that's a cool thing, right? But anyway,
the point is you're not just satisfied. It's like, we're going to keep doing these things. Whatever business you're doing, you're going to continue to grow what your marketing strategy is. Your go-to-market for your businesses is going to continue to evolve where the people are, right? Like, isn't that the point?
Right. Well, and that's kind of what sparked this conversation, right? Is that I made a post that just said that TikTok had eclipsed Netflix in the terms of video viewership. Which for me is a crazy thought. I mean, I grew up with Netflix was, you know, it was a mail order DVD. I mean, that's don't tell Netflix, but I think I still have a few in my DVD.
Many of us do.
Yeah.
That might be why they went to digital only. Like, I have a feeling. But it's crazy to me to think that this app on a phone that my 12-year-old daughter, 13, that my daughter listens to or watches, eclipsed Netflix. Like, that's wild to me. Now, to her, that's just normal. She's like, well, yeah, Netflix. I don't watch anything on Netflix. That's grown-up stuff. Like, it makes sense. Now, part of the discussion, though, is they're not talking about the entire American segment, right? They're talking about 18 to 35. And so some people are still writing it off because they say, well, my demographic is 35 to 45 or 35 to 55 or whatever, 40 to 60. I don't know what your demographics are, but they're writing it off because they say, well, 18 to 35, they don't buy my stuff. The correct answer is they don't buy my stuff, yet.
Right.
That's the mentality to get into. I mean,
or my buyer isn't there yet. Because it doesn't mean that if he's over 35, he can't go to TikTok, right? I'm gonna say I'm over 35, and I have gone to TikTok.
Yep.
So that same thing applies there. Don't rule it out.
No, and it's not all dancing, dancing choreographed routines either. Like when I produce content on TikTok, it's just me showing people like the machine run or showing them the wire get in or just stuff that I think is interesting that they might like. It's visually interesting content. It's now if you can do choreographed dancing, you can also do good. Like there's a guy I followed since like the beginning of my experience with TikTok. Is called the Dentist. So he's a dentist that does TikTok, and now this guy is good with like the choreographed routines or whatever. So it's interesting to watch a.
We need to ask if
I don't
Bryce
know if it's
dances.
kind of call him middle aged.
Bryce is going to have a dance.
Yeah, it's going to have to be him because it won't be me. But that's the thing is you don't have to though, right? Is the majority of the content that I consume on TikTok is I don't know that there's any dancing going on. Like it's just not interesting to me to watch like people dance. But I'm watching. Here's the thing about TikTok that makes it great. The algorithm is really good. It's really good at figuring out what you want to watch before you know you want to watch it. And people already understand this, right? Because there's like a so if you're familiar with Reddit, there's subreddits, right? So there's a theme involved on each Reddit page. So, but people are giving this theme to TikToks because they'll say, "Well, I'm on farm talk right now," or "I'm on car talk right now," and so that what they're saying is the algorithm has dialed them in to all thing cars or all thing farms, or I'm on fishing talk. Like for a while, I was on alien talk because like I was just watching content about aliens. And I watched a few videos and it kept serving videos to me. The algorithm is really good at figuring out what you want to watch when you want to watch it. So when you flip that to an advertiser, which technically we're not even an advertiser, we're just a content producer, right? We're not spending any money advertising on the platform. But to a content producer, that's gold. Because when TikTok finds people that want to watch your content, they're really good at giving it to them right when they want to watch it.
That is awesome. I think that
people are sleeping on TikTok and they really shouldn't be.
I think we're gonna have to have like a once a month of What's Up with Joe because I do. I think like I want to know. I want to dive into so many things with you. Like we didn't even cover like your videographer that travels with you, and so I just think that you are a business owner, in a B2C, in a service world, in a B2B owner now, and your acceptance of making content and your strategy, your marketing strategy. I'm just blown away with it, and I want to get that message out there to others.
The whole thing is going where the attention is. That's the entire thing. Is you got to be where the attention currently is presently. And I just strive to always be like wherever that attention focuses, I want to be in that area. So right now, like it's obviously not there right now, but what's on my mind is metaverse. Because people were talking about it for a while, and then cryptocurrency it didn't crash, but it really pulled back. And so now people are for whatever reason are not people I think mentally link cryptocurrency and metaverse. They are somewhat related. But people aren't talking about it right now. And I think that's like a 5 or 10 year discussion. But I think it'd be interesting to see what right now, this conversation could be happening in a virtual room in a metaverse land where it's the three of us and 20 other people, and we're all virtually in the same room and we're having a conversation in real time. That is interesting.
I've heard Mark Zuckerberg talk about it a little bit, and I definitely think that it is certainly going to reshape how people interact in a virtual medium for sure.
Yeah, who was it? Was Pat was just the one that went and did that? He was walking through the roof tech, and he was face to face with the people in the Philippines or something.
I didn't see that, but maybe. Yeah.
He told us about it. So they have like a VA staff, and they had it to where you're actually in the room with them, like at a conference.
Yeah. So you can have
right now they're using avatars.
In the same room.
Absolutely. It's because it's okay. So it's the person to person relationship, right? Like that's what in video we're getting really close to it. people feel like through my YouTube channel that they know me, but it can be better, right? So in the metaverse right now, they're still using avatars, and the avatars are getting really good, right? Like you can take a picture of yourself, and you can have. I think part of this is also getting people used to it too.
Yeah.
But it's like so. Sidebar: it's like when 4K televisions came out, they had to take the resolution down because 4K TVs
was too weird.
Visually freaked people out.
Yeah.
Because it felt too real. So they had to bring resolution down and then gradually give it back to now 4K is all people want. So the avatars I think are doing that. They're kind of like stepping people into getting used to. But I think there's a day when it's not avatars, it's the three of us are having this conversation and it feels like we're in the same room. Just like it feels like when I'd come out to your guys' location, when the three of us were having a chat, it's going to feel a lot like that. But we're not going to have the travel in between.
Oh.
So I don't know. I think that's kind of interesting.
I
think B2C, that could be you sitting in your client's living room or they sitting in your office without having to travel.
I think even from a technologically agnostic point of view, businesses should be looking at how they use their digital presence to be more interactive with their audience.
Yeah.
That is, and to me, it's like, if that solves the problem, if that's the next step, they need to latch onto it, and whatever it is, because I think that's that shift that we're experiencing now is, from the days of just TV, which is what really exists in Web 2.0, is still mostly a one-way conversation, right? The screen is speaking at you. And when we can start to upgrade that, so we're talking with one another, and the more we can do that, whether it's, right now there's this type of thing available, but like you leaning into that's that next level, I think, of effectiveness.
Well, we talk about marketing in a funnel as there's 3 core elements. You attract them. Hey, hello, over here. And then you've got to connect to them, right? And people forget that before you convert them.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and so that connection, if you continue to improve that video and so on, we use messaging a lot and that, but if you go if you use these methods, it's not like, oh, you're not selling them. Look, you're gonna sell. They're eventually, if you connect to them, the right people are gonna convert. You just need to go through the relationship, because you don't go to a stranger and ask them to marry you, right? Like,
sure, right.
Date them all the way. So I feel like that connection, we're getting more tools and getting technology to really kind of
turn that up.
Yeah, take the depth into the connection.
Absolutely.
Pretty cool.
I agree.
Absolutely.
We've kept Joe for a long time.
I know. I think we've taken like most of this afternoon, but Joe, I mean, it's awesome. I hope we can continue this conversation, because there's so many things that we could talk about around this, and you're practicing it. And I want to commend not just you doing it, but if you don't know, you go places and you teach it, and you don't have a business. There's no video marketing school. But you came to an event that we put on. I've seen you at a lot of other events, sharing with other business owners how they can harness this in your business. You're not like, you're not holding like this little secret, this little precious that you have, but it's something that you're sharing. And I commend you for doing that, because I am a huge fan of anybody that's pouring back into the entrepreneurial small business world. So.
Well, I tell you what, so that whole thing for me is all about legacy. Right. It's all about my legacy, but also helping people create their legacy. Right. And I think for me, so for video, what I think is interesting is with all this video content that I'm producing, that my son's grandchildren will be able to consume this one day. Now, I don't know, who knows how, Neuralink or what, but they'll probably be able to consume this content at a later date. And that's legacy. Yeah. Right? How did the business that we're sitting in today, how did we get here? Like, if I could watch my granddad when he was my age and get into his frame of mind, how neat would that be?
Yeah.
Yeah. Imagine
if I could have been there the day he said, we should build a fence. What do you think?
Yeah.
How cool would that have been?
Yeah.
And seen him build the business.
Yeah.
That's really what I'm trying to do with Ozark Wireworks is document the process so that legacy lives on beyond me. And so in coming to the events and like meeting the, that's what I'm trying to do is help them create their legacy too, right? Is start documenting. It doesn't. I go on this whole tangent because everyone I think is very afraid of not being polished, of not sounding articulate,
Yeah.
on just not being the best version of themselves. Guys, here's the thing: that's not how you are in real life, right? And so I try to push people to start creating content because it's not going to matter. It's no one's going to matter. And honestly, I think when we watch people who are really well spoken and they articulate very well, it comes off as inauthentic anyway.
Yeah, we don't connect to them.
No, because that's not how real people are. That's not how they talk. That's not how they act. But that's the thing is like trying to help people, and that's why I try to help them understand. Like we're talking about your legacy here. We're talking about your kids, grandkids, your grandkids, grandkids being able to walk in your shoes. How awesome is that? You know, and that's and just because you say and on and you pause or whatnot, like think about the movies you guys see of people in the 40s and 50s, right? In 60s. It sounds weird, like the way their mannerisms are a little bit different because we're constantly evolving like how we interact with each other and all that. It's not going to matter, is my point. You know, 100 years from now, it's not going to matter anyway.
Yeah. This is awesome.
Yeah.
I really am. And I want to go to I want to go to the conference with you. I want to go to social media marketing with you.
Social media marketing world, 90 days.
We got to do it. So
90 days from yesterday.
So we got to end this because we will get into another 5 conversations.
Yeah. Thank you, Joe. Thanks for the time today. Thanks for the chat. It's it's always a pleasure.
Of course.
Yeah, we enjoy it. We can nerd out for a while. We didn't even get into technical video stuff. See, we didn't nerd out.
But I think that's the thing. We want to talk about that. I think you do. I like talking about it.
Yeah, I would love to. I would love to.
But I think that's the thing at the audience. Like it's like, oh, that's like scary stuff. But anyway, thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Let's not let it be so long between the times we do this, man. I think it's been 6 months. So.
I agree. I'm trying to be more cognizant of that, of like set up a regular routine for things like that, because like I enjoy these conversations just as much as you do. And I had the same feelings. Like when we're in the middle of them, it's like, man, it's been too long. Like these are good conversations that, because even there's a whole thinking about the importance of teaching and building understanding. So like when we're having these conversations and I'm explaining how I think about things, it is helping me better understand.
We could do like lunch. Right? We'll do like lunch dates like once a month. We'll take him out to lunch. We'll have to send you a box.
Virtual lunch, yeah.
It's not even like once a month. I'm in. It would be
awesome.
Right. Let's do
it.
Let's do it.
Of course.
All right. Thanks, Joe.
Bye.
Bye, guys. Thanks.